Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakeville Planning Board to order. It is Thursday, March 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. This meeting is a hybrid meeting of Zoom and in person. Just for the record, Michelle McEachran is participating via Zoom. And for the record, I have Jack Lynch, John Cabral, and Mark Knox present in the meeting room. So that said, all votes tonight will be a roll call vote to ensure accuracy for minute taking and record keeping. Is anyone else besides LakeCAM recording this meeting? I get no response from that. So that said, the first item on our agenda is a continued public hearing for 2 and 4 Bedford Street. And I would entertain a motion to continue this at the applicant's request to our next meeting, which would be March 28th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here at the Lakeville Police Station meeting room.
So
I'll second with discussion.
Go ahead.
I know I said this last time. Could we just request that they withdraw and refile? Because I hate to think that people will lose interest and stop showing up when we know that there are concerned abutters.
Yeah, so
And I think,
I talked to Kathy about that, I think on Tuesday when I went to get packets. And I thought maybe we could have her send a letter or email to the applicant to that, just to get a response, to confirm that they would be in, or to request that they withdraw, or at least continue to a further out date specific rather than every other meeting.
I mean, I would think at some point they know that they're gonna be ready the next meeting. If not, it just seems that we've had this now repeatedly, I think. And,
Early January when we started that.
I mean, some of these people come for this, and all of a sudden it's a continuous.
All right, so we're at 5 continuances now.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree, Michelle. I just, would you agree to, just requesting Kathy to send an email, just to, let them understand our concern and frustration about, the public's perception?
yes, I like that.
Okay. So that said, I have a motion and a second. I'm gonna start with Michelle. Jack, you're gonna be second. John, you'll be third, and I'll be last for a roll call vote. Go ahead, Michelle.
Aye.
Aye.
Say your name.
Jack.
John Cabral, aye.
Mark Knox, aye. Motion carries. Meeting is continued, or hearing is continued. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a site plan review for 210 Kenneth Welch Drive.
Hi, folks. The engineer's here, he just
Yeah,
takes
I'm
care
good.
of Mother
You just need
Nature.
a minute or two?
Yeah, he's all
I'm
set.
gonna read the
Just-
public meeting notice into the record anyway, so get a
What's
second.
that? Oh, okay, great, thank you, sir.
So I make a motion to open the public hearing, and I'll read the notice. The Lakeville Planning Board pursuant to section 270-6.7 site plan review of the town Lakeville Code will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Lakeville Police Station, 323 Bedford Street. The purpose of the public hearing will be to receive information and public comment on the following site plan review application. 210 Kenneth Welch Drive, the applicant, Metan Marine Restoration Incorporated, RH Marine Group, LLC, seeks site plan review and approval for a proposed 60 by 120, which is a 7,200 square foot addition to the existing building to provide additional coverage, storage space for boat manufacturing and associated site improvements.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor? Your volume is down, Michelle.
Muted.
Sorry about that. McEachran, aye.
Lynch, aye.
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. Public hearing is open, sir. If you could identify yourself and go take the floor.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jim Pavlik, formerly with Outback Engineering, but this is the site plan that we put together. For Matan Marine, and you guys might recall seeing this a couple of years ago. So this is the second edition that Mr. Borelli is doing.
Hi, folks, Mike Borelli.
Nice to meet you.
I'm the owner of Matan Marine and managing partner of RH Marine Group.
Excellent.
So, the orange outline represents the existing building, and the solid, piece there is the, new addition that's proposed. And I believe in your, notice, you pretty much outlined what we're looking to do. This is in an existing area where there's an existing paved area, an existing stoned, gravelled area, and it's minimal additional roof area, the southern portion. So there's not gonna be any significant additional runoff. And the existing drainage basin is up here in the northeast corner. And so Mike is planning this addition primarily for
Expanding our lamination shop. We went from building 13 to 21-foot boats to building now 26 and 32-foot boats. So that's basically gonna be the extension of our lamination shop, the 120, where we can line up the 32 and the 26 in back of it. And there you go, you got about 60 feet there. And that's gonna be the lamination. Then we're gonna push it back the other 60 feet and it'll be our assembly shop.
Okay.
So he's not anticipating any additional employees, but we have updated the parking and the septic information to maximize the number of employees that might be utilizing the building to 15 people. So we're gonna be striping some additional spaces over here on the north side of the building to provide for that parking, but on the entire site, there's plenty of employee parking.
And last year, I think after we finished the building, I had the whole place paved. And the grounds, I don't know if you guys ever got a chance to go through it, are impeccable.
Yeah, you do a nice job of maintaining the property. That's
Thanks.
good.
I appreciate that because I'm the one who did it. It was like it was like my little therapy over working on boats, going out there a couple hours a night, so that lawn, when you drive by, was put in by seed. Okay.
Yep.
So, we also went ahead and paved that area, knowing that this was coming up, so we already have it paved for the area where the additional parking spots will be.
Jim, could you just give us a rundown on how you're picking up the roof runoff from the addition and what's that, just to interface with what was existing, loading and parking area, just to convince us that the drainage is
Sure.
no different.
So there are existing roof downspouts. It is a sloped roof.
Yep.
So there are existing downspouts that are all tied into this existing infiltration basin. So there'll be some new roof drains at the corners. But basically, this is a pretty flat site altogether. As I mentioned, this is a crushed stone, gravelled area.
On the addition, will they be picked up with a gutter and roof
Yes.
drains as well? And
Yes.
is that gonna be designed to go into its own catch basin or into the parking drainage, which will be picked up in the retention
It'll
pond?
tie into this basin here, piped into that.
And basically, you're swapping impervious for building.
Pretty much, yeah.
You have a little bit, looks like on the south end of that addition that was over gravel rather than paved, but
Right, but it's a very small area, and it's all gonna be going into this infiltration basin anyhow.
so for the record, we have two letters. I don't know if you saw comments from the fire chief?
Yes, I actually invited, the fire chief down, a couple days ago, and he sent the deputy chief Pam Gardner came down.
Yep.
Did a complete walkthrough of the place. She said, you know, you can tell them, you can throw my name out. She said, tell them you're all set. We normally have 3 sides. You can not only drive around the building, we always have it like that, but you can drive around even where the new building's going. We have it that cleared out. I mean, you can drive tractor trailers around the whole property.
A ladder truck could get around.
Yeah, a full ladder truck, an 18-wheeler could drive around that, the building. And like, again, not just the existing building. It's cleared out enough that if you put the new building there, you would still have plenty to drive a tractor trailer around it. No
So
less a
just
fire truck.
for the record, I'm just gonna read the chief sent us a letter. This document has been prepared as a comment on the proposed construction project located at 210 Kenneth Welch Drive. The department wishes to communicate to the board that the plan as submitted appears to be compliant with 527 CMR, Comprehensive Fire Safety Code. This property has a history of boat storage that is capable of encroaching on fire department access requirements. It's requested that the planning board emphasize the need for clearly marked fire lanes on at least 3 sides of the building. The configuration of the building must allow for the fire department access to be within 150 feet of any portion of the exterior building. And then he called out a few, I'm gonna call them trade-offs. If you sprinkle the building, you can change that to 250 instead of 150.
The building will be sprinkled. I sprinkled the other addition. I'm definitely gonna put a sprinkler system in this part of the building.
I think that just because of the square footage, I think you're required to.
Sure.
But that's not our business, but
Gotcha.
we outside the building.
So if it has a sprinkler system, you go 250 feet then, huh?
But if you wanna take this, Jim,
I had seen the letter before, but,
That's
you
good.
had, or you have a copy?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, so as long as you're compliant with whatever the chief says,
Absolutely.
when we do our final decision on the site plan review, we'll just include some language that reflects his comments and concerns. So ultimately, that will create a zoning violation if you don't comply.
Yeah, I get
And,
it.
and so if they go there for a fire alarm thing and they can't get around, they get all pissy, they'll mention it to the, building commissioner, and he'll probably tell, you gotta clean that out, Mike, you gotta make sure that they can access.
Understood.
If you continue to do that, like I say, it's a zoning violation, it's enforceable, but it's for your own safety and everybody's
Oh, Yeah,
good, so I
I
know
do
you'll
whatever
it.
they want to do. I'm not saying that because I'm sitting at this meeting. They come up, I ask them to come up on a regular basis to do walkthroughs, just to make sure, not only we're compliant, just, you just want to be in good standings with the town.
Yep.
We've been here 6 years and we want to keep it that way.
So the other thing is, Board of Health sent us a note, a letter. We received a copy of the site plan for 210 Kenneth Welch Drive. The plan proposes an addition on the rear of the building. The proposed addition will not interfere with the footprint of the existing septic system, which is located in the front of the building. The flow for a septic system is based on the number of employees. So providing the addition will not result in increased employees for the septic system will not be affected. Therefore, based on the information provided, the Board of Health has no objections to the proposed addition.
Great. Super.
So, again, that's between you and the Board of Health, but just make sure that employees-wise for the flow, that the system does handle what you're doing.
Super.
So at this point, you good with your presentation at this
Yes.
point, Jim? Michelle, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm good.
Jack?
All set.
John?
No, I'm good. This is the fire access, but I'll take care of.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clean,
Okay,
what
thanks.
you got there.
Thanks, folks.
We're satisfied, and it's all in the back, and you keep the good looking place, so we're happy with that.
Thanks, we appreciate that.
So we'll take a little bit to draft our final decision to turn into the clerk's office, and that just kind of triggers the process for the site plan review. Kathy, we're looking at, will be a few days to draft that if we vote on it tonight, and I'll sign it. Probably give us a week to get that drafted and signed.
Great.
From that point, we're looking at about 14 days for the waiting
It's a
period,
20-day appeal period,
20 or 21?
20.
20-day waiting period, and then at that point, I'm sure you notify the building commissioner for your building permit, and you'll be good to go. That's the process
great.
for us to be concluded.
Super. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming in. We like when people do it right. So that said, I'm gonna make a motion to, well, before we do that, specific conditions would be just the comments based on the fire chief's comment letter. And then sort of our standard conditions that we usually apply to site plan review. Is that fair to say? I just do, if I close the hearing, I don't wanna have to rehash it. So I wanna make sure that everybody's satisfied. If we take a template copy of,
Do you wanna wait on closing it and draft the conditions so we can all review it and then just make sure, cause they might have comments. If they have any comments or questions and the hearing's closed, they can't speak to it.
you guys
Do you
all right with
wanna
that?
Continue it, draft them, and then,
What that'll mean is just at our, March 28th meeting this month, we'll have that document. You can review it. If you have a concern, you could voice it, we could amend it if necessary. It's not stringent, but
I think what I'm hearing is you have pretty standard conditions and that you're gonna
Yeah, sorry.
incorporate the fire chief's letter to maintain clearance around the building.
And this is our second time around, you know, I mean,
it is a different process now, though.
okay.
You know, we adopted, some changes to our bylaws, which this process is better for the town. It protects the town to make sure that what you put on the plan definitely gets done, which is this, again, this is not a big deal, but it's really, you know, when you get something, a business on Main Street and they say X and Y and then it's not done. This whole process that we're doing and filing at the clerk's office, again, makes it the zoning violation if you didn't do what site plan review approved. And I understand you're gonna do that. It's not a big deal, but it's your call. If you wanna, it's a week probably for us to do it. We may wanna just meet as a group and just, you don't have to come back at that point. Kathy could email you the copy of it if you wanted to send comments and we'll just vote to close it at our next meeting.
What works better for you guys?
I think that does. That's probably better just so our
We
board
feel
has a
pretty good
chance
about
to
things,
review it.
okay? It's just, you know, obviously we're
Yeah,
anxious,
it's
but
not,
we
we're
get
not gonna face a denial.
Yeah, I
It's
get it.
really just,
Sure.
again, if there's a surprise condition within.
We can then change it, or we can negotiate it with you, or
Exactly.
whatever. We'll do what you folks think is the best thing to do.
All right, so
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue the site plan review hearing for 210 Kenneth Welch Drive until March 28th, 2024, so we can, review conditions and close it at that point.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Start, Michelle.
McEachern and I.
Jack,
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. You're good to go.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks for coming in.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is to review zoning board of appeals petitions. The first one on there was crossed out, Kathy, that was just, we had discussed this, it was on our last meeting, it's
Yeah.
already closed out, we made comment.
Yep.
Next item is Joyce 51 Shore, which is a residential, typically we don't comment, would, the board agree to that?
yes.
So I'll make a motion to make no comment on the Joyce project at 51 Shore.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Michelle?
McEachern and I.
Lynch, aye.
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. Next item, on the zoning board of appeals petitions is Rocky Woods, which has several different names now, but, does anybody want to make any comments on that? Michelle?
You know, once again, this property is a priority protection parcel. It's got forest, protected species, artifacts, Native American history. It's mentioned in both our master plan and our open space plan. It's kind of devastating when you look through the filing and see everything that's there as far as resources and knowing what they're looking to do. I know right now, you know, the state has been mandating housing, and 40B is one of those, you know, existing housing mandates. And we've seen just recently, because the rapid transit communities have started being required to comply with 3A MBT housing zoning. And we saw that Milton has denied it, and now they're going to court. I think it's interesting, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to play out, because we know that the state is basically creating a housing crisis by, being a sanctuary state at this point. I don't see how the state can create a housing crisis and then mandate that towns build the housing without any funding. Like, the state is not offering money towards the children that will be dumped into the schools or the roads or the services. We've got 50 years of 40B, and yet Massachusetts remains one of the least affordable states in the country to live in. And my recommendation would be to request that ZBA deny it. I would rather my tax dollars go to a well fought court case rather than having to potentially build schools, or we know that the schools are a huge portion of our town budget. So for me, I would like to see us request that they deny it. And
Okay. Jack, do you have any comments on it?
This is, the same property that we had Mohammed Rami in here on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I am definitely opposed to any impact on the Native American areas.
John, you have any comments on it?
No, nothing more.
Is anybody here from the public to speak to this? If you could come up to microphones at this table here, state your name, and just keep in mind that we are just messengers at this. We're not hearing this comprehensive permit, it's just we have an opportunity. Typically, we only comment on commercial projects. I understand, I think this one's kind of different.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, we're happy to hear you, but we're only gonna be able to give a recommendation to the zoning board. We are not hearing that comprehensive permit.
There's gonna be a vote today, though, on that with you guys?
All we do is we're gonna vote on whether we make a recommendation or not to the zoning
Okay.
board of appeals. And if we say yes, then we choose the comments that we will send to them.
Okay. My name's Mark Master. I live at 25 Freetown Street, which is the house right on the side of the lane that goes down to the cell tower.
So did you come out when we had a big
Yeah,
site visit?
I just happened to be there and I saw all these cars come up and I said, let me see what's going on. And that's the first time I heard about
Yep.
Mohammed's plan to put 200 units back there. And all the rain we've just had, I got pictures, I'm saving it all, just my yard was flooded. I'm talking, I had to put a sump pump in it, front yard and rear yard. Where they're planning to do this spot, which hasn't perked, I've been there 15 years. Every time someone's went back there to do something, it hasn't perked. So with the rain we've had lately, there's no way it possibly could perk right now. I don't know how, if they can get by it by 40B, I've heard other people say, but it's definitely not, everything she said, actually, thank you for saying what you said. The impact it's gonna have on the town, schools, 200 units, how many kids are gonna be in that school, out of those units? It's gonna be astronomical. Can we handle that? Can we handle it with the fire and police department? I know we have a great police department, we have a great fire department, but it's adding 200 more units in there. I've been down there, I've lived over there, so I've been in those woods, I know what the property is. The ledge that's back there, the artifacts back there, the spotted lizards, no turtles, but lizards that are back there. It's not a good idea for the town. I know the 40B, because a sanctuary state, it's not, and I agree with her. I'm willing to fight it in court and let's see what happens. I'm definitely not for this. And the lane that goes to the 200 units would be driving right outside my bedroom window. My bedroom is right there on the side of the lane, probably 20 feet from the road, so it's definitely gonna affect my property, my house.
Curve on the road too.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous curve right there.
Oh yeah, the amount of cars that are gonna be put on Freetown Street now, when I was I went to the meeting, well, not the meeting, the get-together you guys had, in April, I think it was, and they said something like 600 cars. Try to throw 600 cars. You go there now during school let out. The only time it's really bad is before school, after school. Traffic is pretty bad. You put 600 cars added to that, it's gonna be astronomical. The road can't handle. I don't think the road
Cars are
handle.
moving at a pretty good clip too. It's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit.
What's your name?
James Maloney, I live at 24 Freetown Street,
Right
directly
across the
across from. I'm facing the road coming out. It's coming right towards me.
He was at
So-
that meeting too. He happened to be there.
So when I come out of my driveway, I got a bad curve right there. Lucky you get 25 feet of visibility before those cars are right on top of you.
Yep.
So, it's a blind driveway, basically. And they're moving at a good clip on that street at any time. And now I'm gonna have cars coming out this way, and that street is narrow. It's tough to make the turn,
Yep.
to stay in.
Familiar with it. I went to the high school up there.
You know what I mean? To stay in the lanes, coming out of your driveway, you're almost like a 90-degree turn coming out, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And you gotta watch the traffic coming around the corner there. You get 20 feet, so you actually my driveway, I gotta put my window down and listen for traffic, because they'll be slamming into you before you even see them,
And that's just a
So,
couple of the
and that's
small
just-
problems.
That's just the small problems. Other than
Well-
the headlights coming into my house at night, all hours of the night, the traffic. I mean, and then again, like you say, in the wells, where they
Well,
get the water.
I know he said something about might be able to tie in a half a mile away, if I remember correctly, into the Taunton Municipal Water, but then it's the septic. A pumping station with 56,000 gallons gonna be pumped out every day. You don't think that the whole
Into a
neighborhood's gonna
leaching field?
smell that, or it's a big project. He wants to put houses down there that that has the 1.6 or whatever it is requirement for a town, then yes, go ahead, put 13 or 14 or 15 or 20 houses back there. But 200 units with condo like they did over LeBaron, it's not the right place for it. Lakeville's not the right town for it anymore. I can't believe they did what they did over there. And I wired most of the houses over there. I'm an electrician. I wired a lot of those houses over there. And I couldn't believe they had gas and water and sewer at that spot. I'm like, how do they get that? We don't, as residents, we can't get that. We can't get town water or town sewer.
Right, it's only at certain
Yeah,
spots and it's.
and that was one of the spots over there.
In the wells, they go with a community well. I mean, in the summer during the dry season, I can't even put the hose on. I get like probably 5 gallons
Yeah.
a minute maybe, or 4 gallons a minute.
Yeah. And
Right now, we're fortunate right now.
But during the dry season, that's trickling. It probably goes down to 2, or 1.5.
Yeah, and I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to be clear, like the water thing and the septic, our agent in the Board of Health, he is the best, and he will review the heck out of that stuff just to make sure it's even possible. And I understand your
What good
concerns.
is a house if you don't have any water?
Right? And it's not
You're gonna
buildable.
put a water tank, a
It's
water
not
buffalo
buildable
in the
if they
yard?
can't provide that water supply, so, but again, I want everybody to be
These are
heard,
all
I'm not
things to
trying to shut you
factor in.
down, but that's a Board of Health thing that.
Right.
And I would recommend that you folks go to,
There is a meeting in a couple of weeks, right?
is it next
Next
Thursday,
week.
Kathy?
I only heard about this a couple hours ago. I didn't even know
Yeah.
that we were having.
So, well, tonight is really just the planning board,
Okay.
again, we just make a quick recommendation. And again, I'm not trying to shut you down,
No,
but
no, I understand.
I'm strongly
I won't let you shut me down,
recommend,
so I won't
strongly recommend that you guys go to the ZBA
we'll be
meeting
there.
next Thursday.
We'll be there.
Is that in this room, Kathy, or is that somewhere
Library.
else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
At
gonna
the
be a lot
library.
more people here, cause.
Are you folks here for the same thing? Yeah. If you'd like to come up and state anything, I'm happy to have you. Just,
So I'm Michelle Carey. We live at 10 Margot Drive. So on the proposed plots, we would be right next to about one of the 10 condos, and it'd be it looks like about 50 feet off of our neighbor's house would be the start of one of them. I'm obviously against this also, but
The pumping station is next to your house too.
yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah. I'll just say that we took out a good amount of trees in our backyard last spring, And we've had massive flooding in our basement, and it's become a huge issue. And I'm nervous now that if they're clearing however many acres they have to clear, that's that many trees that are not gonna be sapping up all this water. I know we've had a pretty heavy rainfall this year, but even just covering the ground in cement, it's just going to create even more drainage issues, and we would be somewhat downhill from where this property would be. And so I think it's just gonna really affect all the surrounding properties.
Okay, noted. Would you like to speak, or are you? Good? Okay.
More of a listener.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Dan Wilga, 8 Dunham Pond Road. Just a couple quick questions with regards to the site project. I know that back in August of '23, Mass Housing put out a letter to the town with regards to the proposed Rocky Wood site project, including some of the concerns I believe that this board had, as well as I believe Ari Sky, the former town administrator, had. Some of the points that they had outlaid here was some of the concerns that folks had at this table, which was congestion on the roadways, town water capacity, the archaeological survey, the wetlands, and a few other things. With regards to those concerns, has the town received any type of information from some of these suggested surveys that need to be done? Or, for example, like for the municipal water capacity, I mean, they were talking about water pressure being, possibly low in that area. Were there any, tests done or surveys done with regards to that from any of the concerns that were brought up?
So, not that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that the zoning board of appeals will require that as part of their comprehensive permit review.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, as a member of the town as well, I mean, I find that this development in particular, I mean, knowing how LeBaron Hills went, it's definitely a challenge, given the 200 units that are supposed to go into that area in such a small area, with the density. So, I mean, there are going to be a lot of concerns with wetlands, in particular the drainage, the swales, that kind of thing for stormwater collection. I mean, there are some major decisions with this project that's going to be very concerning for the townspeople, and drain of resources, police, fire, not to mention the school system as well. So, I mean, these are all things we gotta look at and consider. But what I would also be interested in is what we were just talking about, which is what the findings are from, some of these state agencies, as well as, from Taunton Water and so forth, in terms of what their findings are, what their recommendations would be. I think that would be very important to also take a look at.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Michelle, go ahead.
So Dan brought up a good point. Mass Housing is a for-profit mortgage company, and that's who we're getting an approval for 40B from. I did look at those comments, and to me, it reads like a form letter. They basically spouted back to us our concerns, and they're not. I think what Dan is asking is, has there been any due diligence done here? And they're not. They're not doing that. They're basically just leaving it up to the town. Obviously, there would be a peer review, I'm sure, done for a number of these items. But like I said, I think, 40B is just, it doesn't do what it claims it does. It doesn't create more affordable housing. And I don't believe that has been, questioned in a court of law in that way, because just like when you print more money, it causes inflation to go up. So it doesn't make anything more affordable. Just like, you know, when you raise minimum wage, it causes the cost of goods to go up. So you're really making the poor poorer. And that's the same thing with this 40B. You might be creating a few units with affordability components, but the overall quantity of housing is driving the cost of living up. 50 years of 40B, and it has not brought the cost of living in Massachusetts down. It's not something across the country. It's specific to this state. And it's been tried, and it doesn't work. I still think, I have other concerns about, they should probably widen the road and be forced to put in sidewalks if they were to move forward with this, because it is so close proximity to the schools. But I would rather us recommend that the ZBA deny this comprehensive permit.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question about the 40B housing. How many units are proposed? 50? Out of the 200?
It would be 25%.
20, okay, so that would be,
I think it said at least, is that
50.
correct?
that
At least 50.
It'll be 50, 200, 25% is 50.
25% of 200 is 50.
No, I know, but I thought that I read that it said it would be at least 25%, so it might be more than that. Is that true?
And again, that's a requirement, but to my knowledge, it's always 25%. Have you heard it ever different, Kathy? Unless it goes down to 20 for a 40R, but this is not that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the projects have been 25%.
okay. Thank you.
Sorry. That's what that done.
He says no too.
Yeah.
It's mine's back there. I'm glad you think so.
Kathy, typically when a project like this, and I say like this, a larger 40B project gets applied to through the zoning board of appeals, do they require some mitigation? Like I know LeBaron had like sidewalks and some stuff.
Yeah, like a large project like this, I would assume that would be on the table. I mean, I can't speak for the board, but
How many 40B is in LeBaron? Does the town know that? We do.
Sure. That was,
I don't know it off the top
It's
of
a
my head.
quota, are they at the quota now, or are they?
The state's board.
they've got a phase 6 and 7 that's gonna be coming.
Yeah.
On the, if you look
Yeah, I
at
remember watching a
airways.
meeting when they were talking about phase 5 and they weren't compliant in phase
Yeah.
5. And they brought that
And
up.
that was approved a long time ago, so that's gonna go forward.
Oh, no, I know that.
So those are the last 2 phases.
Jack, are those phases the larger multi-floor buildings?
5 and 6,
Yeah.
they're townhouses. Yeah,
Okay.
they're 4-story. And they're virtually all full.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion, and before my motion is seconded, I will consider discussion from the planning board members. I move that the planning board recommend, number one, that all Native American sites and artifacts be preserved and protected to the highest levels. Number two, that the zoning board of appeals strongly consider the importance of the priority protection parcel and the value as open space. Number three, zoning board of appeals consider strong mitigation means for traffic impacts, school growth impacts, and other impacts on town infrastructure. And number 4, if no mitigation could be reached to offset the negative impacts so that the zoning board of appeals consider denying the project. That's gonna be the recommendation that I would recommend based on this discussion.
Can you repeat that last one?
It's sort of almost like a extension of number 3, but if no mitigation can be reached to offset the negative impacts of the project, then the zoning board of appeals consider denying the project. It's not our spot to tell them to deny it, but we're making a recommendation. We've got the Native American sites, the infrastructure issues, and the priority protection parcel.
Basically, you got the construction impact, too. It's gonna be
So-
3 years of this stuff.
Do you guys have any input to that, or is that, I think that's a reasonable recommendation considering the magnitude of the project and that it is just a recommendation from the planning board. I think it's reasonably drafted, fair.
I mean, I like the last one,
Well, I
the last part of the
like
last one.
You like the number one, don't you?
right,
Me
but
too.
you need to understand that it's the zoning board of appeals that's gonna make the decision, and if they don't make that decision, that we still want the Native American artifacts to be considered and traffic impacts and all those other things, and if they can find mitigation, if they think that that's right, then we at least want those other things picked up. Would you not agree with that?
No, I agree with that. I just don't know if do we have to say something more at the beginning? I guess, so are we recommending that they at least take into
Well-
account these things? And if they can't, then we're recommending that they deny it, or is that what we're saying?
We're saying that no matter what, Native American sites should be
Yeah.
protected.
Right,
They strongly consider the importance of the priority protection parcel as open space, and then they consider strong mitigation means for traffic impacts, school growth, and other impacts on town infrastructure, i.e. police and fire.
Yep.
And if no mitigation means can be reached, then they consider denying the project. It's, like I say, we can't tell them to deny it. They may laugh at what we say. But, you know, I think that generally, it is what it is, and the reality of the planning board's recommendation is, traffic, pedestrian, safety, those things. I do
Impacts
think
the-
that Freetown Street is probably undersized to handle that, so that maybe they should be reviewing as part of their peer review if Freetown Street needed to be improved. Or is there a different outlet?
what about the drainage that these folks were talking about? That's gonna be,
I mean, that's something that's all gonna be
Yeah.
heard by that. We're not gonna get into the weeds with reviewing those plans.
Okay.
It's just, I think we're trying to make a fair recommendation based on not reviewing the project, but what we think the impacts are.
Just the impact of the project itself it's probably gonna be like a 3-year project. You're gonna be busting up a lot of ledge in there. And you're gonna have field mice running wild out of there, which it happens on any of
So-
those projects.
So, if I have that motion and no other discussion, can I get a second?
I would amend the motion to be just the last part of the last item. Like, that's what I will second. I recommend that.
So you wanna
they
take out
strongly
protecting the
consider
Native American
a
sites?
denial
You wanna
because
take
it's a
out,
detriment to town.
you wanna take out protecting the Native American sites?
I think all of that is secondary because it's not protecting the town as a whole to move forward with this project. Like I said, I would rather my tax dollars be spent in litigation against this project because it does not do what it's supposedly does. 40B does not create affordable housing.
I understand everybody's displeasure with it, but I just think we're stepping out of our lane as the planning board. And I think we would be doing us a disservice if we didn't make those recommendations along with that final statement. Just in case they approve it, I think that those things should still be on the table. And I think if we
Well,
don't
I'm sure,
include those, it's,
I mean, those are not anything that hasn't been mentioned. Like, all of that already is in the letter about the artifacts, about the, you know, the road, the traffic, et cetera. So they're gonna have to do their due diligence. And I'd say as planning board being elected officials and zoning board being appointed officials, I think they should strongly consider a recommendation. And my recommendation would only be for this project to be denied.
not based on
And
anything.
if you guys
think-
can take a vote, but like I said, I'm not gonna be in favor of that recommendation.
I think that if you're gonna make a recommendation like that, you need to have some grounds for that denial. I don't think you arbitrarily just should say
Well,
that. That's
the
why
grounds
I
have been
felt
stated.
like with at least the third item that I had for impacts on roads, schools, infrastructure, services. So,
No, I agree with Michelle, but then I also agree with you. I don't think we can just deny it without listing the reasons why, because,
I mean, I think. all
Well,
the
I think
points are
those should be the reasons, because 40B does not create affordable housing, which is what it claims to do. So, for me, that is the number one reason for denial. Second, it is a priority protection parcel. There are significant artifacts, Native American history, protected species, wetland, ledge, forest. Those are all other reasons as well.
but I had priority protection parcel.
I'm all in favor with you.
But I think the wording saying if these things cannot be mitigated, that means, you know, they can, as long as they put protections in place so that the project can move forward, which that is what I'm against.
Well, I mean, that's a negotiating point for the zoning board of appeals, that those mitigations may be strong, and then the developer may not want to agree to them because it makes the project too costly. But again, that's not our, would need to be on the zoning board of appeals to do that. So. I think it's a fair and encompassing recommendation. I understand that you want straight up denial, Michelle, but I think that we should consider throwing in those other comments just in case. Do you think that if you're an odds player, what are the odds that the ZBA denies it? Based on past history? That's what scares me.
I would hope that they would consider the recommendation of this board. This is not LeBaron. This is an untouched forest. This is right next to our schools. It's far too significant of a parcel for it to be demolished for housing that doesn't do what it claims to do. And that's the only reason that this is even being considered, is because it claims to create affordable housing. And the Commonwealth cannot create a housing crisis and force towns to foot the bill. We should not have to accept higher density. Even a desert has an oasis. If we want to live in a rural town, we should be able to live in a rural town and maintain that rural character like the voters of this town want.
Well, if you want, make a motion then.
I'll motion to forward a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals to request or to strongly suggest that they deny the comprehensive permit citing the reasons that I've stated, that 40B has shown over 50 years that it does not create more affordability. And this is a priority protection parcel with native artifacts, history, protected species, and the forest. All the, irreplaceable once they're destroyed.
Nothing towards traffic impacts or school growth?
Yep, those as well, yeah, the impacts to the schools would be far too great for, taxpayers to have to foot the bill.
For profit.
So, I mean, I feel like you need to be able to provide Kathy with something in writing, or are you writing all that down, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it though.
So if you could, Michelle, as just in conclusion of your motion, could you walk through the impacts to the town that you want to have included in your motion?
The impacts to the town are traffic, schools, first responders, and like I said, destruction of our natural resources.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
I will.
Jack Lynch has seconded the motion. I have a motion and a second, so a roll call vote, starting with Michelle.
McEacker and I.
Lynch,
I'm just, before we vote, so what do we, your recommendation is that we have them review. Like, well, these items, if not, then they should deny it, right? And then Michelle's motion is to just to deny it and give the points, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
So on planning board recommends that so we're giving stipulations here saying that these items are it, and that if no mitigation could be reached to offset the negative impacts that we have here, that they deny it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between this and Michelle's saying that we deny it and we're listing reasons after. But are we approving? I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between the two.
It's the reasons for the denial.
I mean, we don't need to impact the Native Americans anymore. They were here before we were.
No, I think they both say that. They both say the protection parcels.
We don't need any more housing, do we?
No.
And if we do, it's gonna impact the infrastructure. If we don't have industry, which we don't seem to attract an awful lot of, taxpayers gonna pay for it.
So what's our, like you said, so what's the negative impact if we just flat out deny it, like Michelle?
Well, how much goes on
we
to
don't
another
deny it.
project?
No, I don't want to deny it if we don't recommend it. So I'm just trying to figure out why we're splitting hairs here, is why we're changing, like, what's the difference between the two, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I don't feel
Voting.
badly. Mohamed's got 18 projects.
No, and I'm not denying that. I'm just trying to figure out why we're having this, why we're trying to go between two different.
I guess I feel like mine was more worded in case it was approved.
Right.
There's still, I don't think they would not consider any of that stuff during their process, but.
Yeah, well, you got way more experience than I do, so maybe you're right, but I just feel strong.
So we have a motion and a second and 2 votes so far, and it's to you, John.
Pressure's on John.
Yeah,
Nobody's watching, don't worry, no one's
No,
watching.
I'm not, I'm trying to, I'm just. I guess, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before a vote is taken for roll call, did you also put in the Taunton watershed as well as part of that? before it's voted on. Because there's gonna be a big impact on water resources for the town and for the watershed. Just to make sure
Well,
that that's in
we-
there too.
We have a motion. Oh, and a second already, so.
Understood.
I don't know. I guess,
What would be the negatives to agree with the vote? What, if I heard denying it, what would that impact?
well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I guess, what's the recourse if we deny it? And again,
We're not denying it.
No, if we're not denying it, but I'm saying
Request.
if we're not recommending it, what's our, I don't get what's our negative impact as the planning board, if it goes through.
I guess there's no impact other than the zoning board didn't hear that.
It'll give us a little more teeth.
Again, I'm the newer member to the planning board, so I'm still trying to, again, I haven't been through something as like this, so I'm trying to figure that. So I guess,
Let me help you.
yeah, go ahead, please.
Knox, aye.
Oh, he's the
Well,
boss. You gotta-
No, I mean, I don't wanna, yeah, I
He's the
guess,
boss, okay.
all right.
At this point, like I said, it's a recommendation.
Cabral, aye.
Appeals.
Then.
Kathy's gonna do her best to translate that. That's what I had, and I know we're using Michelle's motion, but some of the language is in there too, if
Okay,
that's
yeah.
helpful, so you don't have to go back and watch, but it's Michelle's motion and vote. So a motion carries. The zoning, the planning board will make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals per Michelle's motion.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's not over. You guys
No,
gotta go
no,
to that
I know,
mean.
this is just
It's-
step-
This
No,
is just a
just one
recommendation.
step in the direction.
We
Don't
don't have a
steps.
vote with that
No,
board.
I know.
It's just, a lot of people are passionate about it. I wanted everybody to be heard.
Thank you.
We probably stepped a little bit out of our lanes as the planning board. But I'm sure that the chairman of the zoning board of appeals will be respectful of that as far as not gonna call me a jerk, but he's
We live right next to
gonna
it.
need to hear all this from you folks,
15
not
years,
from
I've been there
us.
25.
There's more
so-
people going for that next one. No,
I know.
we didn't.
That's really the one you
It's
wanna
over
go
there.
to.
Fight another day.
I
Yep.
watched that whole area flood where they had to shut down 140, where they're saying they're putting a leaching field, they had to shut down 140, 10 years ago?
Yeah. That
And they had
100-year
to
storm.
close all the exits down 140, divert all the traffic up to
I
Freetown
have
Street.
pictures.
and
I have
our
pictures
street
of
got
everything. I
flooded
have
out.
pictures of it all.
You know, so I don't know how they're putting a leaching field in there.
So
It's
next,
probably
next
underwater
item on
right
the
now.
agenda is,
Thank you.
you're welcome, have a good night, everyone. Discuss update of regulations. I didn't see anything in the packet, is this something, do you wanna wait till you're back in person, Michelle, to go over the regs?
So I did circulate a red line version. I don't know if anybody else had, edits to add to it, but my recommendation, because there's so much about street acceptance in there, could we circulate it to DPW and make sure that everything is still, consistent with, what his end of it, because he is on that end of street acceptance.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, can you send up Franklin a copy of that and request his input to that section?
Yep. Just the street.
Really looking for him, a request from him to give us input and updates as we are updating our rules and regs, that if he would be so kind as to give us his recommendations on road acceptance.
So only on the street acceptance?
Michelle, only on the street acceptance portion of that?
Well, that's the portion that's his purview. Everything about the roadways and the streets, yes.
Yes, just that section, Kathy. Update on OSRD. Michelle, did that get circulated to the building commissioner, and have you heard back from him?
No, I have not,
Okay,
but it did get circulated.
all right, so you wanna just, Kathy, at this point, we have a placeholder on town meeting for that?
I did send the memo to Tracy.
So we'll look to request his input before our next meeting. So I think at that point, we're good to send that to council for a final review. So that then we, at that point, could hold a public hearing. Does that seem reasonable, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's our update on the OSRD. We have a request to release funds for Joshua Estates and Deerfield Estates with a possible vote. In your packet, you have a memorandum. The applicant has requested the planning board vote to release the following funds from peer review account. These amounts were not expended, and the balance totals have been confirmed by both the town accountant and town treasurer. So these are funds that were taken by the planning board many years ago for peer review and other expenses that the town may want to have review done during the implementation of these two subdivisions. Kathy had I talked to her a little bit during the week that this is basically just gotta get it done. I reached out to the building commissioner, he agreed, he said he's got a whole list, or you guys have a list of like many more of these. And so I'm assuming he was gonna send me the list, and it's maybe something we can go through and contact some of these previous applicants and get these things off the books. But he agreed that this should be done. This is long before my time in the planning board. So I'm gonna separately make a motion that the planning board release $4,828 to the original applicant for Joshua Estates.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Michelle?
McEachern, aye.
Lynch, aye.
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. And now I make a motion that the planning board release $9,930.62 for Deerfield Estates to that applicant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Michelle?
McEachern, aye.
Lynch, aye.
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. So that resolves that. 3A MBTA zoning update. Kathy, did you have that for us?
I do. So I thought that this had been submitted, and although Serpent had done the work and had done the calculations, it hadn't actually been submitted to the state to see if it complied. So I have the document. There's a lot to go through. I did a real quick first pass through it. There's things that have to be, the town clerk has to put together. So there's a little bit more that has to be done. It's gonna be kind of like a process.
So at this point, that's our update,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be on your action list to work on
Yeah,
with
so I figure, this
the
isn't,
required parties.
yeah, this isn't like a super rush, like we have 2 years, but to try to get a little bit of it done, like every couple of weeks, make sure.
Is that something Serped can help with, or it's really now fill in the blanks
Yeah,
internally?
now it's on us. So,
Okay.
I have spoken to Nate about it, so I think we're gonna kind of try to work together as our schedules kind of allow.
Okay,
Just kind of keeping an eye on those deadlines.
great, thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is the February 8th minutes of meeting for the planning board. Michelle, did you go through these?
Yes, there was one, if I can find it, there was.
Oh, we did.
Did we lose her?
Oh, she's going for the one thing. I was like, still looking.
Go for coffee?
Yeah,
She'll be back.
Okay.
I didn't see anything. Oh, she had something.
I didn't miss anything to that point. My internet kicked me off, but it's loading back. So. Here she comes. Welcome back.
She's connecting audio
Thanks.
still.
But did you get that?
No.
Oh,
You said that there's one thing and then you went blank.
Blank.
We were waiting.
Okay, so second page,
Yep,
first paragraph, last sentence.
it was
She
unsure.
thought it was just a matter of getting it through the chain of approval, including the DPW director, building commissioner, select board, etc. It was unsure. I think it should just be and. But other than that, it looked good. I'd motion to accept the
One
meeting
change.
minutes of February 8th, 2024 with that one
Edit.
edit.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Michelle?
McEachern, aye.
Jack?
Liz,
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. Minutes are approved. Sue, do you want to talk about it?
Do I wanna talk? Sure, eventually.
Okay. So discuss adoption of the final version of the housing production plan. Michelle, you and I had sort of talked about this, that the final version came in and it was being sent off to the state. And we were just gonna do an affirmation vote tonight, just to affirm. Go ahead.
So we have the final version. We have to take a vote to accept it. The select board has to do the same. And the select board also has to send a letter to the state to formally adopt housing production plan. So I did request, a sample letter from Taylor, and, the select board should have that sample letter to go off of even. So they need to get it onto their agenda as well. I don't know if we want to send a memo over to them or if they're on top of it. I believe, members of the select board were included on Taylor's final version email.
Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion for the planning board to adopt the final version of the housing production plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
McEachern, aye.
Liz,
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. With that, Kathy, will you circulate a memo to the select board affirming that the planning board has adopted the final version and that the select board is now required to adopt and send a letter of approval to the state? So next item on the agenda is discuss a recommendation to the select board regarding the planner position or other support possible with a possible vote. Other support and possible vote. So Michelle, you and I have talked a couple times about maybe trying to move forward with a budget for the planning board to use legal counsel as needed and or consultants. But I got thinking, and I talked to the building commissioner a little bit about that I think there are some internal things that probably need to happen, that it's difficult to get them done, I think, in a timely fashion by a planning board member, which would be like a final review of, say we voted on something with edits. And I guess I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I'm not going to think of all instances, but so if we voted to approve something contingent upon an edit, and then the engineer submitted the plan, which was supposed to be the edited plan, who's reviewing that to make sure that the edits reach the intent? Because I think that's difficult to do with counsel or consultants. So I just want to make sure that, go ahead.
A consultant wouldn't be able to review a final plan?
They would, I guess, it's just, they're not internal. I feel like some of that's internal stuff. That it's the final printed plan that gets sent to the office for a signature, or,
Right.
So we would have
Right,
to-
and I know I've caught things on the final plans that weren't caught even when we had a planner, so, as far as I'm concerned, we tried having a planner. It was not good for the town. The offline discussions with developers and recommendations that weren't in line with what the town wants to see. And even, finding out that there were conceptual plans not filed months prior to any of us being aware that they existed. I literally want to take that planner description and shred it, never to be used again. I would rather see a combined position potentially that is more of a coordinator, because I think what we lack the most is communication. So maybe somebody with like a coordinator. I don't know if there's a potential for conservation / coordinator. That would be something I would consider for in-house, a combined, but if it's a combined position. But other than that, I would also like to, why don't we look into the consultant? Why don't we ask a few, what do they have to offer? And how does it work with other towns that they work with? I don't think it could hurt to do a little digging into that in the meantime, to see if maybe there is a consultant option that might work for us. Because that would be, so anytime, we have a position created, it's more than just a salary. It's all sorts of things, benefits, yearly increases, retirement. I mean, look at the health insurance that's, still carried for the retirees. So for me, if we could take that position and put some of that money towards a consultant instead, I think it's just better for the town as a whole. It's,
So I will
much
say,
less than not doing it.
my experience with the Conservation Commission, having an agent that reports to them has been a good experience. And I want to be prepared, because ultimately it will be the select board's decision, that we may have an option B, because I was told by the interim town administrator that position has been funded within the new budget. So,
The planner?
yes. And one of the select board members made the comment that we got to get this taken care of, like it needed to be filled. So I would hope that they don't ignore our recommendations. I guess, yes, I agree that we should look into the consultant thing. But if the select board is dead set on hiring a planner because it's a funded position, I think that we should demand that it be with a reporting structure more mirroring the Board of Health or the Conservation Commission, where that position answers to and works for said board. And again, I agree from a financial standpoint. I'd love to see the town budget go down, even if it's by one position, but I don't know that they'll fully adhere to our wishes. They may want to keep the position, so. And again, from a funding standpoint, if you're reallocating to like you said, a coordinator, that's probably more in line with having that support like those other positions, as long as the reporting structure of a coordinator still answers to the planning board, but I guess the possible disadvantage to the title coordinator would be, I would imagine that coordinator would be having intra-board interactions between all land use boards, so that direct, and again, it's not oversight, but the direct service of the planning board would be spread a little thinner because of that connection to multiple boards if it's a coordinator. And again, I'm not saying don't, I'm being devil's advocate and just having a conversation. So your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm fine with that. It wasn't like we had a dedicated planner when we had a planner anyways. It didn't feel as though he answered to us at all. Definitely seemed to be on his own sort of.
So,
Bubble. I don't know. You know, I would hate to see us hire another planner at this point. I think the money would be better spent, like I said, even if it was a portion of that budget towards a combined position and a consultant.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
potentially.
if we do a coordinator, we're still gonna need like an outside consultant to review some of the stuff, where
Yeah.
the coordinator's supposed to be doing all that, just, I guess, at a.
so again, I mean, that's the discussion we need to have with the select board, if we go back to them, is it's gonna be a working discussion on how
Right.
do we get to where we wanna be and have them agree to it. And if you're gonna create a position like that, you're gonna need a job description for it.
Right,
And who's gonna oversee, and that's the thing is, I think that there's the potential for a coordinator to be, it still could be overseen by the town administrator.
Right.
Which
Well,
so is the concern?
I just think by the nature of
I mean,
the,
by all the things Mark was doing, and then he had the town administrator take on some of those, I mean, once again, I'm not that familiar with what Mark was doing, but he comes here and goes through a whole laundry list of stuff he's working on. If we don't have a town planner, who does all of that? And the town administrator would do that. Doesn't he have his own set of responsibilities?
no, you don't.
I guess I don't.
So, all I'm talking about is the reporting structure. The town administrator is still the town administrator, and he's not gonna take on this work.
Okay,
What we're saying is, rather than have, the town administrator oversees 5 different departments.
right,
One of them was the planning department.
yeah.
What Michelle's saying is, we would get better service, rather than have a planning department, have a town coordinator, which we had at one point, but it got nixed. Would be this individual that just communicated between boards, circulated information. And probably could assist with experience with some plan review, but they wouldn't be quote unquote out on their own island doing nothing for the planning board.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I mean.
I think that's Michelle's intent, but my point is, that person would still be under the supervision of the town administrator, unless they agree to say, we'll put that under inspectional services, so that that's part of all land use boards, which would make sense also if the head of the inspectional services agreed to that the coordinator position be under their purview. But again, my goal would be that the planning board get the best service from
I agree.
the position, not, I just don't want it to be spread so thin that we don't get help, because it's where it went before.
We're filling a position, but we're getting a small piece of the pie, I guess, and then we're still having to go to a third party because we don't have the. Yeah. But I think is the concern that the planning, because the select board allocated the money in the town budget, that they're gonna try to fill a position just to.
Well, they're gonna take our recommendation. I'd like to be able to go back in the next couple of weeks with a recommendation from us, but I don't want us to be all over the boards with.
No, I think, like what Michelle said with the coordinator, and if, again, with the allotment, that it's, maybe it's 2 things that better serve the planning board versus the town planner that didn't service at all.
You know better than I think any of us what Mark did or didn't do. And just when he came here and, you know, he was always going to these meetings and here and there and doing all this stuff. I mean, is that, having said all of that, I don't know if that's,
So the one thing he never did was circulate information. And we're trying to create a position that would guarantee to circulate information. No reason to hold it back. No reason to keep it close to the vest, because I don't know what reasons he did that, but we just didn't get information circulated. I don't know if it was because of the reporting structure. We just want to fix that.
Okay.
I agree on that, but the tasks that he did do, who would do them? His coordinator?
Oh, so I'm glad you said that, Jack. So Michelle, that's another thing. I think Kathy's been working on it with Nate a little bit, but long-term, I don't know that that's, the planner's job description was to update the subsidized housing inventory. So I think whoever this new role is, unless it's gonna stay with Kathy, and I know the previous town administrators did that. Rita always did it. In fact, she offered, I saw her and she said, I would help. She would volunteer and help to get that done, just because she was familiar with it.
Right.
At least for now.
Yep.
But going forward, I think that's something that should be part of that job description. That's why I wanted to, I've looked through the job description, and then at one point I showed you, I was trying to redraft to have a job description better suit. And maybe that's the job description of a coordinator, not a planner.
Right.
And still have that subsidized housing inventory under a coordinator. But they're circulating information, they get information, the building department could give them the new permits and the stuff that they need, that he explained to me how they did that, but to have that part of that job description, so something still valuable is getting done for the town and the planning board.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I guess that said, would it make sense for us to try to work together to generate a town coordinator job description that would suit all these things that the wants that we wish we got with a planner, or that we think that the town should have from that position as part of our recommendation to go to the select board?
Well, I still would like to compare a consultant though, too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because like I said, I understand they're holding a place in the budget. That's different than
Yeah.
the yearly going expense of that
Yep.
hired position too.
So, I guess with a consultant, we need to figure that out. We need to
Yeah.
figure out who we could ask questions to, see what they offer, and try to get some sort of
Check with other towns.
somebody from a consulting firm to give us a description of what services they provide and what fees are involved. So,
Right.
I guess we could brainstorm a little bit about that over the next week or two, and
Yeah.
try to reach out to some firms and ask questions, if you wanna do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because then we have a comparison. So we can compare, this is what a consultant would do versus potentially hiring again.
All right, so sounds good. So the two paths we're gonna go down is to investigate the consultant option, and/or still think we should draft some sort of a job description, leave the title of it blank, but just what would serve either the town and/or what we feel like might still need to be achieved if there's a void now.
Okay.
And again, yeah, maybe that does get picked up by consulting, but it'd be good to have that, so if we do talk to a consulting firm, that we could say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And they could say, yeah, we can help with all that, but we don't do that, or whatever, so. All right, so that said, Michelle, you and I can try to look into a consulting firm or two, and I'd like everybody to kind of go through, try to make up some sort of a job description of what we think
Plan.
would serve this board the best. If somebody were to help support the planning board. I have a draft, I'll circulate it.
Yeah.
And then you guys look at it and add to it.
Is the
Yeah.
town planner, is that description on?
I have a copy of that too in my email I can circulate.
Okay.
Can you,
Just curious, yeah. Maybe we have both, so we can kind of, yeah, that'd be great.
wanna get together on that, Joe?
Yeah.
You wanna get together and do that?
Sure.
All right, I will share the existing job description and the draft that I started on to change that. And I'll change the name on that to coordinator. And Kathy, I'll circulate that to you too. I'll try to make sure I send it in a Word document, because I know with my MacBook, it always comes out as binary, whatever. All right, so we can move on from that item. We'll keep that on the agenda. So Kathy, if you could keep the item 10 on the agenda for the next time. And if you would, please just give me an update on the select board and the housing production plan. Like,
Yep.
if you get a response or whatever, just like to know that's moving along. I've already said it a couple times tonight, but our next meeting is March 28th, 2024, here at the Lakeville Police Station Meeting Room at 7 PM. Kathy, do you have anything else we need to go over? You good?
Oh, good.
Everybody else good?
Good. Did you?
What do you got there, Jack?
We supposed to go to this fire station building committee meeting on Tuesday, the 19th?
Is that in our packet? Where do you get that?
No, I got an email.
Is it because you're on master plan?
No, I don't think so. I got it from, Josie. You guys
Oh,
get
that was the Zoom. He sent the wrong Zoom, that's all.
Oh.
He told you to delete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, ignore that then. Unless you want to go to it, your public's welcome.
No, I mean.
Oh, actually, Mark,
just do
I'm
the
sorry,
Zoom.
one more thing. So talk about placeholders to the select board. We had sent a placeholder for the 40R. Do we need to withdraw that?
So I have that working group between Brian and Nate and Bob Nunes. So as an update, Amy Questle had reached out to the state. I think I gave you that update at the last meeting. Bob Mather had reached out to me and said that their group did some research, and I'm trying to think of, I don't have it in front of me, some of the requirements, and we keep using the term 40R, but everything Lakeville has is 40S. We don't have 40R yet. It's very similar, but we have the smart growth overlay, and I'm told that's sort of being phased out based on that email, and everything else will be 40R, so we hope that that's compatible. But to your point, I believe that that working group is aware that we're probably going to be pushed to fall town meeting, and it probably won't happen now, just because we don't have information with a subdivision from the developer of the old hospital property. So we can't create a zoning overlay until they make their subdivision. So Kathy, I mean, if you wanted to, just to send a memo that we think we need to possibly remove the 40R request for a placeholder from town meeting warrant, with confirmation from the select board. Just because I think it's a bigger joint discussion than
Okay.
just us, where we're trying to work, collectively, bigger than our four members. And like I said, they're aware. You said something, you said the 40R thing, and it made me think of something else. And then we discussed and I forgot it.
Oh, something about placeholders for town meeting?
No, are you guys okay with me, sending an email to the select board, just reiterating, our request to be involved in budget discussions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I will do that. I'll include you too, Kathy. That said, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Lynch.
Walker and I.
Cabral, aye.
Knox, aye. Motion carries, meeting's adjourned.